Well, I told you yesterday that we would be looking at this today. The rehabilitation, for lack of a better term, of the Biden presidency that's happened over a period of just 26 days is quite stunning. Think back to 26 days almost a month ago. Gas prices were down a little bit, but not really that much. We had just gotten yet another higher inflation report. Joe Biden had a significant lag time in terms of major legislative accomplishments during his presidency. And many were saying, what is the game plan here? What is the justification for voting for Democrats in November? What's the justification for thinking it's even remotely plausible that Joe Biden might run for reelection in November of 2024, that is? And you had a relatively strong Trump doing rallies, searching, still with quite a high favorability rating among Republicans. And think about the last 26 days, where we have now seen a significant, not yet explosive, but significant, very decided uptick in Joe Biden's approval rating. If you take a look at the numbers, you see that the approval rating for Joe Biden bottomed out right around July 20, July 21. That was kind of the low point, now closing in on about a month ago. And since then, it has been a decidedly positive trend, not so much in terms of the numbers. I mean, it's really just been a shift from 37 to 40. But remember that these are averages among many different polls, and the direction is clearly positive. Compared to past presidents, you might remember that 538 has this great tool where you can compare Joe Biden's current approval rating to those of past presidents at this point in time. I believe we're 574 days into Joe Biden's presidency. And it was below every single president dating all the way back to Truman. It's now not quite so bad. If you compare to prior presidents, Joe Biden's uptick is now putting himself within striking distance of where Donald Trump was at this point in his presidency. If you look at Bill Clinton, with just a couple more points, Biden would now have an equivalent approval rating to that of Bill Clinton at this point in his presidency. You look at Reagan, basically the same. That gap where Reagan was more popular at this point in his presidency has essentially been eliminated, and Biden has almost caught up there, roughly equal to Jimmy Carter, and now above Harry Truman. Harry Truman, very low approval rating at this point in his presidency, only 33, and Joe Biden above that. So what is the reason for this change? Well, it's a combination of things. It's some good news for Joe Biden and really just humiliating bad news for Republicans and for Donald Trump. If you look at the Biden side, the positive side, Inflation Reduction Act, PACT Act, a jobs report with more than twice the number of new jobs created versus the expectation. A wage report, wages up 0.5% in July. Inflation report, inflation year over year coming down for the 12-month period ending on July 31st. And yes, although admittedly controversial among progressives, the strike that successfully killed al-Qaeda terrorist Ayman al-Zawahiri. No due process, of concern to many down on the left. We will talk about that on the Thursday show. But as far as presidential accomplishments tend to go, taking out a known terrorist on the most wanted list, generally speaking, is considered an accomplishment. And I know everybody will get mad and everybody emails me and says, David, how can you call that an accomplishment? How could you gloat about that? It might not even be legal. I'm with you. But as far as presidential accomplishments are concerned, it certainly counts. So Joe Biden doing significantly much to help himself. And then also you look at what's happening on the Republican side. Donald Trump now under criminal investigation for violating the Espionage Act, among a number of other different federal statutes. His home, Mar-a-Lago, having a search warrant served, tons of stuff taken. We learned yesterday that Trump's former personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is now under criminal investigation in Georgia. We learned yesterday that Donald Trump's Trump Organization CFO, Alan Weisselberg, is getting ready to take a guilty plea. It's all very, very bad on the Trump side. So all of a sudden, you have the midterms not looking so bad, with Democrats now not by much, but slightly favored to take the Senate. Democrats still likely to lose the House, but maybe by not very much, and at least a reinvigorated Democratic electorate. Now, what will actually happen in November and what is the viability of Trump and or Biden to run in 2024? Still unclear, but a dramatic turnaround from where things were certainly 60 days ago. Oh, and gas prices. I forgot to mention gas prices also yesterday or today ending something like a 65 consecutive day decline. All of those things are good as far as the presidency is concerned. And yeah, I mean, listen, it's a reasonable thing to make the case that actually higher gas prices in a sense are good long term because they encourage people to abandon gasoline powered vehicles. You're 100% correct if that's your view. But the narrative is the very high gas prices are a negative indicator for the economy. Gas prices coming down are a good thing. And so we have to analyze these things, not so much in the full depth that you and I might, but in terms of how it is perceived as far as a presidency goes. And a very good 26 days for Joe Biden. Will it continue? We don't know, but we will follow it. Andrew Yang was interviewed on CNN about his new third party, the Forward Party. It really went very, very poorly for Andrew Yang. And I want to kind of make clear as we get into these clips, I like Andrew Yang on a personal level. He's been a guest on this program many times. I was interviewing Andrew Yang before almost anybody else. It might have been Sam Harris who interviewed Yang before I did as far as national shows, but we were early to talk to Andrew Yang, universal basic income, etc. I like the guy. This interview was a disaster. Now, people who emailed me had two different points of view. Some, like me, believe that this interview was a complete and total disaster because Andrew Yang continues to just not explain what are the policies of the Forward Party. Others felt that Jim Acosta, the interviewer, bullied Andrew Yang and did not treat him well. I just don't see that. Andrew Yang and the Forward Party keep saying, we're not left or right, but forward, and we take the common sense consensus view on all of these divisive issues. Right, but you got to explain what the position is. And you can't just be like, well, anything goes here, because then you're not really a party. I believe Jim Acosta did a good job in this interview. Let's take a look at some clips. I think this is very bad for Andrew Yang. And as I've said before, to me, the Democratic Party is too centrist. So when I think of a third party, which I love, I want third parties. We need more than two parties, and we need to figure out the right way to properly bolster and inject third parties into the national dialogue. I want something to the left of the Democratic Party. Andrew Yang started the Forward Party with some Republicans, and it looks like they're basically trying to place it between the Democratic and Republican parties, where there is relatively little space, by the way. And it's not working for me. Let's take a listen to the first part of this interview.
On both sides,
but you're going to have to come up with policy
really
positions.
Negative results.
Right,
we
but
just
Andrew,
need a better system.
Yeah, but Andrew, you're going to have policy positions at some point. How does the Forward Party feel about Roe versus Wade? Should it have been overturned?
Well, I personally think that women's reproductive rights are fundamental human rights. But the Forward Party has not left or right, but forward stance on even the most divisive and contentious issues.
Well, what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? I mean, that really doesn't make any sense. His personal view is not really the issue. You have a party here. And if the idea is, well, rabid anti-choicers are welcome as well as anybody else, but we're going to take a consensus view, does that make any sense? And what is the consensus view? You've got to explain it.
To take a position on something? Don't you have to take a position on something? You can't just say, well, this is a hot button issue, so I'm not going to take a position on it. You know, if you want to run the country, you're going to have to make some hard decisions, Andrew.
Again, the Forward Party is about that common sense consensus majority view, which is very clear on abortion. It's clear.
What about guns?
Right. Now, Andrew Yang is correct. There's a very clear consensus view on abortion by a higher percentage than at any point during the Roe v. Wade era. Americans believe abortion should be legal in most cases. That's the common sense consensus view. But can he not say that because the Forward Party is also filled with as many or even more Republicans than Democrats? I don't know, but this isn't really doing it for me.
What about assault weapons?
Climate change. It's actually clear on just about every issue under the sun.
Should 18-year-olds be able to buy AR-15s?
Because of the nature of our system.
Should 18-year-olds be able to buy AR-15s?
Again, the common sense consensus majority is that there should be some rules around background checks and access to firearms. But we're not getting any of these things, Jim, because the two-party system does not need to deliver.
But it doesn't sound like you're taking any hard positions. It sounds like you're
trade power.
It sounds like you're sort of a fill-in-the-blank party. If somebody wants a party with no clear policy positions, you're it. But unfortunately, in the real world, you have to take a position on something.
Yeah, and this was kind of an issue when I interviewed Andrew Yang about the Forward Party. And I said, he said, everybody's welcome as long as they believe in like two things about third parties. And I asked him, well, so are white nationalists welcome? And he said, yes, as long as they believe in those couple things. That imploded. And later on Twitter, he had to backtrack and say, actually, the white nationalists aren't welcome. I'm just not really getting this. I want third parties. I want a lot of the things that Andrew Yang says he wants as well, but I'm not clear that we're getting it through the Forward Party. Here's another clip where he was asked about his kind of unusual tweet about the Mar-a-Lago search warrant. And again, just everything about the answers is kind of strange.
Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang, he recently helped form a new political party called Forward alongside two former Republican officials. We should note Forward also happens to be the title of his recent book. And Andrew, thanks very much for joining us. Can I ask you about something that you tweeted about the FBI search at Mar-a-Lago? You wrote, it looks increasingly like the FBI raid was to find mishandled classified documents and not some other DOJ investigation, which was my first thought. Mishandling documents doesn't seem like raid material. It does, however, seem like excellent campaign material for Trump. And I have to ask you, it sounds like you're letting Trump off the hook here. Taking top secret documents to your mansion is okay with you? Are you giving Trump a pass?
Well, thanks, Jim. It was a very disturbing report you just got from Donny. And the fact is, extremism is on the rise throughout the country. It's one reason why we think the Forward Party is so vital, because we think there needs to be a broad, positive, unifying third-party movement. But I'm for anything that enhances national security and the rule of law. And our hope is that as the Attorney General...
I'm for anything that enhances national security. Isn't that a cop-out? Like he's basically saying, if what happened at Mar-a-Lago enhances national security, then I'm for it. But if it isn't, I'm against it. Like it's a mishmash.
And the DOJ dig in, that the American people get a lot of the answers that many of us are eagerly anticipating.
Right.
But are you saying that, I don't think you answered my question, are you saying that the Attorney General had political motivations with this search at Mar-a-Lago?
I trust that all of the DOJ employees, and particularly the FBI agents, are faithful public servants discharging their duty. And it hurts us all that people are singling out individuals in the way that Donny described.
Yeah, so I guess he's against FBI agents being violently targeted. One last clip, and then I'll give you my thoughts.
On something.
Well, we're for the common sense consensus view on guns, abortion, climate change, but we're not getting a
But what are those views?
common sense consensus
what are those
result
positions?
on any of those things, Jim. And
Those
Americans
are just sort of fuzzy, but those are fuzzy, nebulous. It sounds like you came up with something in a focus group. Common sense, middle of the ground. That sounds wonderful. That sounds great. But at the end of the day, don't you have to take a position on something?
Well, the great thing is the American people know where we want the country to go. And what we know...
I don't know that that's true.
That we need a more dynamic, truly representative system than we're getting right now, which is why the Forward Party is growing so quickly. Tens of thousands of Americans have signed up in all 50 states.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, tens of thousands doesn't actually sound like very much in a country of 331 million. So I don't know what to tell you guys. Like this isn't feeling like the electric injection of a third party. And in my mind, it's just sort of like, okay, I know where the Democratic Party stands, and I know where the Republican Party stands. And I know that although I'm not a Democrat or a Republican, I'm mostly voting for Democrats because they're closer to where I stand. If I'm going to consider the Forward Party, I need to know what is their policy position on guns, on abortion, on taxation. And to say that it's the common sense consensus view, it's not enough for me to say this is the movement for me. If I'm missing something, if I'm being too hard on Andrew Yang, let me know. You can find me on Twitter at dpacman. Also, a reminder, Wednesday, August 31st, we will be doing a members-only town hall where I will field questions for a period of time from our members. It'll be at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and you can get exclusive access to the member-only town hall simply by getting a membership at joinpacman.com. Quick break, right back after this. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpacman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpacman.com. All right, an extraordinarily explosive story yesterday, the details of which we don't still fully understand. Donald Trump came out yesterday and claimed that his passports had been seized by the FBI as they served the search warrant at his Mar-a-Lago home last week. Now, if that is true, it indicates that the FBI presumably sees Donald Trump as a flight risk and is worried about him leaving the country, and thus they have removed his means of being able to leave the country. That would be a really big deal. It would be unprecedented for a former president to be unable to leave the country. But is that actually what happened? Was it a mix-up? Did Trump lie? We're still trying to figure it out. It started with Donald Trump posting on Truth Social, quote, "Wow, in the raid by the FBI of Mar-a-Lago, they stole my 3 passports, 1 expired, along with everything else. This is an assault on a political opponent at a level never seen before in our country. Third world." Now, is it actually what happened? We don't really know, because there was a statement late last night that the FBI is not in possession of the passports. Now, is not in possession is a statement about the right then. It's not a statement about we never had them. It just means we don't have them at this exact point in time. We later found out about an email that was sent from someone in law enforcement, presumably to people on Trump's side, saying, "We have learned that the filter agents seized 3 passports belonging to President Trump, 2 expired and 1 being his active diplomatic passport. We are returning them and they will be ready for pickup at 2 p.m. today. I'm traveling, but you can coordinate further with whoever redacted copied above." Now, if that was indeed 2 p.m., it would make the statement from the FBI last night accurate, that they were not in possession of the passports, but they had them at a certain point. We later, I guess this morning, got another report from NBC News. Trump's passports returned after Mar-a-Lago search, per DOJ official. In a message on his social media platform, Trump said the FBI agents who searched his home last week, quote, "stole 3 passports, including 1 that he said was expired." The FBI acknowledged it had the passports the same day Trump said on his social media platform that they took them on August 8th. A Justice Department official said Trump's passports have been returned. So we really don't know exactly what happened here. Why was Trump looking for his passports? How did he know that they were in the boxes that he claimed were planted by the FBI? I've never gone looking for my passport when I wasn't planning to leave the country as a sort of curiosity. It's all very strange, but it does not appear that the overall intention of the FBI was to semi-permanently prevent Donald Trump from leaving the country. That would be a major, major thing. Why did they take the passports and give them back? Was it an accident? Were the passports in these particular boxes? We don't know, but it's all very, very strange. Donald Trump is threatening that his followers will do terrible things if the persecution that he believes is unfair of him continues. Trump used coded language in an interview with Fox Nation, but any of us who have been following American politics and who know what happened on January 6th can tell, this is Trump saying, "I've got leverage and my followers will do terrible things." This is Donald Trump speaking out for the first time since the search warrant was served at Mar-a-Lago. And you really have to parse the language to understand what Donald Trump is saying. Trump is saying that terrible things will happen, meaning someone will do the terrible things. If you say terrible things will happen, they will be done by someone. So then the question is, well, who is it that would be doing those things? Well, it's the people Trump says won't stand for another witch hunt. Well, that sounds like he's talking about his own followers. And what are the circumstances under which these people will do the terrible things? If the, quote, temperature is not brought down. What does that mean? It means if the investigations into Donald Trump continue. Let's take a look at it, because again, you've got to look at the language to understand this. Trump will do whatever he can to, quote, help the country after the raid. Temperature has to be brought down. So we start looking at the quotes from Donald Trump during this interview. Trump said, "The country is in a very dangerous position. There is tremendous anger, like I've never seen before, over all of the scams. And this new one, years of scams and witch hunts, and now this." Okay, so there is tremendous anger. Who's angry? His followers. Reasonable people who understand Merrick Garland signed off on this search warrant after significant consideration. Christopher Wray, the FBI director who was selected by Trump, okayed it. A judge okayed it. We're not angry. We understand the legality of this search. When Trump says there is tremendous anger, he's talking about his followers. And he says that it's over scams. Well, no sane, rational person believes that this is a scam. We understand it for what it is, a legal search warrant. So he's talking about his followers. That's number one. Trump then says, if there is anything we can do to help, I and my people would be willing to do that. What could that be? Well, maybe the DOJ says, hey, we're backing off. And Trump goes to his followers and says, hey, they're backing off. Let's turn down the temperature. Trump goes on to say, there has never been a time like this where law enforcement has been used to break into the house of a former president. And there is tremendous anger at a level that has never been seen before, other than during very perilous times. That's Trump linking the anger of his followers to the peril. Well, what is it that they might do? Trump said, I will do whatever I can to help the country. And then going on, this is really the sort of critical moment of what Trump in the interview talks about the FBI might have planted stuff. They could have taken anything. They could have put anything in. We weren't given access to the search. But then this is really the critical point. Trump says people are so angry at what is taking place. Whatever we can do to help, because the temperature has to be brought down in the country. If it isn't, terrible things are going to happen. So understand that. Terrible things will happen. Someone will do them. If the temperature is not brought down, well, who's running hot? It's his followers. Why are his followers running hot? Because of the search warrant and the criminal investigations that Trump is under. Therefore, Trump is saying his followers will do terrible things if the temperature isn't brought down by law enforcement laying off of him. Look at what people are making Trump do. Understand, Trump isn't making a prediction here. Trump's making a threat. As the article points out, he's offering to do anything to turn the temperature down. He can end this. He can say to supporters, I lost the election. We must respect democracy. We must respect the rule of law. Due process was adhered to in this search. Nobody did anything wrong here other than me. But he won't. And he wants to keep the possibility of his supporters becoming violent as leverage. He knows it. It's abundantly clear. And by the way, Tucker Carlson is playing it up as well. Tucker Carlson last night played this up in the same language.
Edge of something unprecedented and something awful. You could feel it. Even Donald Trump feels it. Maybe for the first time in his life, Donald Trump seems sincerely interested in lowering the temperature, not just for his own sake, but for the country's. He said that. He's never said anything like that. Maybe he doesn't mean it, but when has he ever said that? Let's all calm down a little, he said the other day.
And of course, Tucker is not acknowledging that what Trump said is coded language for my people will become violent if this continues. But Tucker is pretending like Trump is genuinely trying to calm everybody down. That's not what he's doing. Trump's trying to get himself out of trouble.
This isn't good. Yeah, he's right. It's not good. And not just for him, for all of us. This could get very bad, very fast.
Yes, and it would get bad fast if Donald Trump sicks his followers on law enforcement, FBI, DOJ, and violent protests. So playing it up is Tucker Carlson. And of course, everything that was done is completely legal and kosher. Where will this go in the next 7 to 10 days? I don't know, but it's sort of scaring me. Adding to the very, very, very bad 10-day period of news for Republicans and MAGA and former Trump officials, Rudy Giuliani has now been notified. He is indeed under criminal investigation in that Georgia scam that they tried to pull. New York Times reporting, Giuliani is told he is a target of Trump election investigation in Georgia. Yeah. Lawyers for Giuliani have been told that he's a target of a criminal investigation in Georgia into election interference by Donald Trump and his advisors, one of Giuliani's lawyers said Monday. Giuliani spearheaded efforts to keep Trump in power as his personal lawyer and emerged in recent weeks as a central figure in the inquiry conducted by Fani Willis, the DA of Fulton County, Georgia, which encompasses most of Atlanta. Earlier this summer, prosecutors questioned witnesses before a special grand jury about Rudy's appearances before state legislative panels in 2020. Remember, that was when Rudy was flying around doing these hearings. Nobody was under oath, and Rudy was farting at the hearings and transmitting COVID. That's what they're referring to. He spent hours peddling false conspiracy theories about secret suitcases of Democratic ballots and corrupted voting machines. This is the latest in a widening swath of trouble, writes the Times, though he got some good news, which is that he's unlikely to face charges in the federal criminal inquiry into his ties with Ukraine. So we kind of have covered the Rudy story. Rudy could have spent the rest of his days being Mayor 9/11 and just kind of farting around, for lack of a better term. But he chose this path. He chose to hook his wagon to the horse that is Trump. And now that path has consequences. And it's Rudy's own doing. Will Trump say, I barely knew the guy? Rudy really had no role in anything? Is that what's coming? It doesn't seem particularly likely. But what we're learning is that being a lawyer for Trump is a criminally risky thing to do. Look at what happened to Michael Cohen. Look at what happened to Sidney Powell, who has now been disbarred in a number of different places. Rudy's under criminal probe. Eric Hirschman, I believe Eric Hirschman was White House counsel. He now has been subpoenaed. And years ago, we started joking about how MAGA really means making attorneys get attorneys. It really seems to. And couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, is what some are saying about Rudy Giuliani. Maybe that's the case. Maybe he's a nice guy. But these people do deserve it. These are not victims. These are perpetrators. And I know that because of the advanced age of some of these folks, there is a reaction among some to say, this is sad. These are victims at the end of the day. Just leave them alone. These are perpetrators. And the victims are the United States and its people. Those are the victims. And we'll see where this goes. All of these clips you can find on the David Pakman Show Instagram. Search Instagram for David Pakman Show. Find us there. If you value what we do at the David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Marjorie Taylor Greene continues her brutal assault on solar panels, wind energy, electric vehicles. This is one of my favorite topics. These right-wingers, I genuinely don't know whether they're this dumb or they just believe their followers are dumb. But they are continuing this path of saying electric vehicles are no good. You can't drive anywhere in electric vehicles. They don't have enough range. We don't have enough electrical supply in the grid to power electric vehicles. Solar power and wind power are no good. And you can't really do all the things you might want to do in your home if you have solar or wind power. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene straight up saying, if you depend on wind turbines and solar panels, you're not going to be able to have air conditioning in the summer, and you're not going to be able to run your appliances. Check this out.
Ladies and gentlemen, and we're all here in Georgia. Can we just say thank God for air conditioning? Let's talk about refrigerators.
Please.
I personally like my refrigerator. refrigerator. I know you all like yours. What about washing machines and dryers? Lord, please God, don't make me scrub clothes in a bucket and have to hang them out on the line when we switch over to wind turbines and solar panels. I'm going to be really pissed off about that.
This is a real, you know, the sun is hot. How could you possibly cool anything down with solar power? This is not new, okay? This is a newer version of what Donald Trump was going around saying during his 2020 campaign about Joe Biden's energy policy. Remember this?
There'll be no heating in the winter, no air conditioning in the summer, and no electricity, whatever the hell you wanted. Right now, you have it made. You're so lucky. You are so lucky I'm your president. And your team's doing a good job, right?
So this is the same thing they've been pulling for a while. There's just not enough power in wind and solar to power anything. If Joe Biden's president, you won't have heating or cooling. By the way, we've had heating or cooling under Joe Biden. I can assure you, you can have everything you want with solar and wind. I have solar. It runs my air conditioning all summer, and I still get credits and cash back. It runs my fridge. It runs my oven. It runs all of the elements of my bathroom. Those don't actually use electricity. Those are plumbing. It charges my electric vehicle, and I pay $0 each month during the summer, and I build up credits for winter. Yes, in winter, I use more than the solar generates, but I've got the credits and the rebates from the summer, and I pay $0 for utilities, and it's just solar. Now, it is true that right now I have solar panels, but I can't store that. I don't have a battery system. And this is something that's going to be the next phase. There are people who have a battery system so that at night when there's no sun, you're using your stored electricity. Right now, the way it works is when I overproduce, other people get to use the power generated by my solar panels. And then at night, I'm getting power generated elsewhere. But it works out to where I'm generating as much as I use. So far this summer, just running everything with solar panels, I got $250 in rebates, and I've got about $300 in credit built up with the electric company to offset my winter heating when there's less sun. And you might say, well, what about beautiful gas or oil heat? I mean, that's super powerful and efficient, right? At least for heating, we should be using those things. No. Electric heat pumps are much more efficient than furnaces. And most heating systems in the United States are using forced air furnaces of some kind. They either run on natural gas or oil or sometimes electricity. And that is much less efficient than these heat pumps, electric heat pumps that are there. To heat a building, the heat pump will extract energy from the outdoor air or from the ground and convert it to heat from the house. It's much more efficient. So I don't know whether Marjorie Taylor Greene just doesn't know about any of this stuff or whether she knows but understands that she has to keep repeating these things. I genuinely don't know. I mean, she doesn't strike me as particularly bright, but they are now on this really, really hard. Electric vehicles, bad. Solar panels, bad. Wind power, bad. It's all bad. It's actually all really good. And the efficiency that we would achieve if more vehicles switch to electric and more homes switch to solar and wind with electric heat pumps and induction cooktops would be an incredible effect. Now, this doesn't mean we excuse industrial carbon footprints. This is the thing where people get into, well, if I just stop using straws or whatever. Yeah, it's pennies on the dollar. And we have to deal with industry. It must be dealt with. But if the entire country switched to these more efficient systems, it wouldn't be the problem Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying. It would actually be really good. Last night during a live stream that we were doing covering the latest news, Jason Whitlock appeared on the Tucker Carlson show. Jason Whitlock is, his background is as a sports journalist, but he's become kind of like a Christian right-wing nut commenting on politics. And his entire appearance on the Tucker Carlson show lasted under 3 minutes. And basically, Tucker Carlson just teed up Jason Whitlock to go on a very strange anti-transgender word salad, which Tucker Carlson seemed to absolutely love. This is quite literally insanity. It sounds like a crazy person talking. Listen to this.
Beware all euphemisms They're always a cover for lying and misdeeds. Gender-affirming care. That's a phrase you're seeing everywhere, including conservative media to their great shame. What is gender-affirming care? Well, it's castrating children. It's exactly what it is. And it's become finally, or it's becoming illegal in some states. But of course, activists are trying to circumvent the law. The rule of law. So the person behind the site or the Twitter feed, Libs of TikTok, just unearthed evidence of a drug smuggling operation aimed at young children. Libs of TikTok found this online post from someone called Eli Ehrlich. He says he's a PhD student at UC Santa Cruz. Quote, "If anyone needs hormones who can't get access, message me," Ehrlich wrote. "I have a network with years of extra doses."
Now understand, the right is getting a lot of mileage from anti-trans rhetoric. If you watched the clips from CPAC a couple of weeks ago in Texas, the biggest applause lines and standing ovations were for overtly homophobic and transphobic assertions. And that's why they're all picking up on it now.
Ehrlich said he wants to send these drugs to, quote, trans youth. Now, that's a crime, of course, but needless to say, the DOJ has refused to investigate. Jason Whitlock is the host of Fearless. He joins us tonight to assess what's going on. So the DOJ, there is an effort to give drugs illegally to kids that will castrate them, but the Department of Justice is not interested?
No, they're not interested because anything that has to do with gender identity, anything that has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're all for. And Tucker, I'm going to go really big picture here, but and I've said this before, but all of this to me is just satanic.
That's right. Guys, this is Satanism. It's absolutely Satan. I'm sorry, it's not Satanism. It's the work of the devil, is what Jason Whitlock believed. What a great analysis on a major cable network.
Targeting of young people and children that are very impressionable at a very early age, and now we got someone trying to sell them puberty blockers or hormones that will change their identity. And it all goes back to this country was founded by people who believed our rights came from God.
If they believe that, they also believe that that belief should have nothing to do with civil government, which is a little detail Jason Whitlock leaves out.
And when I look at the left, they want to disrupt that founding principle, that this is a country founded on biblical principles.
What he means is the left wants separation of church and state, as the founders wanted as well.
They want to disrupt all of that. And what we're going through right now, Tucker, is a process called sifting. And it's in the Bible. One of the last things Jesus said to his disciples, Luke.
This is supposed to be an analysis about policy. Understand the insanity. And Tucker looks confused, but Tucker likes this. This is supposed to be an analysis about policy. And he's talking about sifting in the Bible.
Chapter 22, verse 31, he tells Peter, he calls him Simon, says the devil wants to sift you. The sifting process is separating us. It's all these different identities that they've invented in our lifetime. Cisgender, non-binary, you're a Republican, you're black, you're white, you're gay, you're lesbian, you're this, you're that. We're all being separated. And our founders saw us as all coming from one creator.
It's really funny when the people espousing the divisive rhetoric bemoan that the country is divided. It's a real irony.
And even for non-believers, that founding worked for all of us. But as we're being separated like wheat, that's why there's so much divisiveness in this country.
Jason Whitlock, the only person who would say that on TV, and we're grateful that you did. Good
wow. What courage it took for Jason Whitlock to show up on Tucker's show and give us this bizarre anti-trans religious nuttery word salad. But imagine watching this episode last night and thinking, wow, Jason Whitlock really nailed it. Sadly, there are millions of people who will watch that segment and say, this guy really speaks the truth. And that's a very, very scary thing. Follow us on social media, interact with the David Pakman Show community, see exclusive content, see when we're taking calls live, and stay up to date on other big show announcements. We post daily. Find us on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and TikTok. Former Republican Congressman Devin Nunes, who is affiliated with Donald Trump's social media platform Truth Social, appeared on Fox News the other day, and he unleashed a dizzying array of conspiracy theories when asked about the documents seized from Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home as a result of the FBI search warrant. And I actually am not even sure what the total number is. This is really something. The question is about the documents and the search warrant from Maria Bartiromo. And Devin Nunes tries to blame Obama, Benghazi. I mean, it's just completely all over the place. See if you can count the number of completely unrelated conspiracy theories that Nunes mentions here. And the sad thing is, this is what the right is adopting as their perspective on the search warrant. Obama, Benghazi, witch hunt, Robert Mueller, Fast and Furious, whatever. Check this out. Try to count them up.
So Devin Nunes, you came out with the Nunes memo in 2018 and exposed all of them. Is it the same documents that they want to have under lock and key that they wanted to get from Trump's home?
Well, look, I don't think we know that, because I'm not sure they even got a whole lot of documents anyway. They haven't even accounted for them. But Maria, I would only disagree with Cash. I don't normally disagree with Cash, but I think this actually goes back pre-Russiagate hoax. I think this goes back to the IRS scandal where they targeted conservatives.
Now, that's three, okay? The current FBI search warrant is over stuff that Trump took home in 2021. It has nothing to do with the Russia hoax or the Russia probe. Number two, the Russia probe was not a hoax. It actually found, there were 34 indictments of individuals and 3 more of companies or something like that. And the IRS scandal where they targeted conservatives wasn't really a thing. It actually turned out that they were more or less equally looking at organizations based on liberal and conservative leaning keywords. I mean, so we're already he's only been speaking for 10 seconds, and we're already 3 conspiracy theories in.
I think it goes back to Fast and Furious during the Obama administration, where they ran guns and tried to set people up. You remember, and innocent Americans ended up getting killed.
Now, Fast and Furious was a program where federal agents allowed some guns to be sold and brought into Mexico so they could trace the weapons. And you can argue it was a bad idea, but it wasn't started under Obama. And it also has nothing whatsoever to do with what's happening with Donald Trump right now.
It goes back to Benghazi. They got away with that.
Now, they didn't get away with anything with Benghazi. This is conspiracy. Is this conspiracy theory 5 or 6 so far? No one got away with Benghazi. It wasn't something to get away with. It was a tragedy because people died. Hillary Clinton was investigated in a dozen hearings. She testified under oath for more than 8 hours, something Donald Trump has never done. And she was found not responsible. But again, what does it have to do with this search warrant? Nothing.
You have to remember, it was late 2015 or 16 that we get to the plan where the Clinton campaign, working with dirty cops at DOJ and FBI and the media, I must say, where they set up to spy on the Trump campaign and ultimately Republicans and frame an innocent man that then led...
That never happened. I mean, in 2016, Hillary Clinton did not work with dirty cops and the media to set up to spy on the Trump campaign. It didn't happen. This is the Trump thing. They spied on my campaign. I'm sure some of you have heard Trump say that. They spied on my campaign. No. What happened was it's a huge indictment of the Trump campaign. What actually happened is that the Trump campaign in 2016 was regularly in contact with so many people under surveillance by the FBI that in surveilling their targets, the FBI stumbled across conversations with people in the Trump campaign. So like, I'm going to give you an example, right? Imagine that Joe Schmo is under FBI surveillance. Don Jr. then gets on the phone with Joe Schmo. So there's a recording of Joe Schmo's conversation with Don Jr. Don Jr. is incidental to the entire thing. It's Joe Schmo who's under surveillance. And because the Trump campaign in 2015, 2016 was in touch with so many people who were of interest to law enforcement, they ended up coincidentally on some signals intelligence. It's an insane story. But as Devin Nunes tells it, it's completely untrue.
what? So that was the Russia hoax that then led to the Mueller witch hunt. So
Okay, and again, the Mueller witch hunt led to 34 indictments of people, 3 indictments of companies, recovered more money than it cost, and was unable to say that Donald Trump did not commit obstruction. That's the truth of the so-called Mueller hoax, witch hunt, whatever it is he calls it. Are we up to 7 conspiracy theories here, or maybe 8?
This stuff is intertwined, and then you just fast forward, Cash mentioned, the Whitmer case and Jan 6 and whether or not federal agents were involved in that. So you just stare.
And that's another conspiracy theory. Were federal agents involved in January 6th? There is no evidence that federal agents were involved in January 6th. This is the inside job conspiracy theory. Some people will just generally cite it and say it was an inside job. It was actually, some people will say it was Antifa or Black Lives Matter. Others will say it was the FBI that actually did the Trump riots. Now, there is a guy named Ray Epps, which many on the right fixated on, a guy who was at the Capitol the day before the riots and I think the day of. And people have asserted without evidence that Ray Epps is an FBI agent. There's no evidence of that. And there's no evidence that federal agents were involved in January 6th. I think that that's 8 conspiracy theories, at least.
And then ultimately this leads to what? This leads to something never done in American history before. You had a president's home ransacked by the same goons that were involved in all of this. And I would say that a lot of people have criticized, the
And that is not a conspiracy theory, but it's just a very dumb talking point, that this has never been done to a president in American history. That's not really anything. Endless things happen in the world, and at some point, they happen for the first time. No president has done the things that Donald Trump has done before, and so it shouldn't come as such a big shock that the outcomes have also been different. This is absolutely nuts. 8 conspiracy theories in about 90 seconds of Devin Nunes speaking, and all sorts of other deranged and nonsensical statements like this has never happened before and therefore it's bad. And unfortunately, they just nod along on Fox News. Maria Bartiromo and Kash Patel. This stuff spreads like wildfire. We already saw it in interviews done with protesters outside Mar-a-Lago, repeating a lot of these same things. It's never been done before. What about Benghazi? What about Obamagate, which we still haven't even figured out what it is? It works, and it's a circle. They say it because the followers believe it. And because the followers believe it, they're encouraged to continue saying these things. And then it's just a circle of trash rather than a circle of truth. The circle of truth is nowhere to be found. The assassination conspiracy theory, by the way, continues. This started last week after the FBI search warrant was carried out at Mar-a-Lago against Donald Trump's at Donald Trump's house. And very quickly thereafter, you started hearing from some individuals that this is the first step in a plot to assassinate Donald Trump. Some would say that it's a deep state plot. Others said it's just a plot. We now have yet another one of these, and this time it's Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani, and this is not Rudy Giuliani on your screen, by the way. This is, I guess, the interviewer. Rudy Giuliani now believes that Donald Trump is in danger, that the deep state may kill him. Incredible. Listen to this.
Said something before in third world countries and banana republics, they arrest the former opponent,
all the time.
or they kill him.
They kill him, they arrest them, they put their families in jail.
Donald Trump should be in any fear of the deepest of the deep state, maybe killing him?
I do.
I do. The deep state, this might all be part of the deep state planning to kill Trump.
Well,
at least putting him in jail.
In many different ways, I do. I mean, the amount of hatred generated toward him is the kind of hatred we worry about that would set off a sick person.
I agree.
I mean, if there is anything to the fact that...
Now, Rudy is right about one thing. Sick people, as he calls them, can be set off. But if anything, they're going to be set off by Trump and others weaponizing a legal action by the FBI. That's illegal, not illegal. A legal action by the FBI, and saying that it's the FBI that must be abolished. It's the DOJ that must be abolished. It's Merrick Garland who's the wrongdoer. That's the stochastic terrorism here. Now, just as a reminder, a lot of people are jumping on the assassination bandwagon. Here is Steve Bannon. This was last week.
And I agree. I do not think it's beyond this administrative state and their deep state apparatus to actually try to work on the assassination of President Trump. I think everything's on the table. I think his security ought to be at the highest it's ever been. And honestly, I think he ought to, and I think he should have flown down to Mar-a-Lago this morning, walked out there.
So Steve Bannon jumping on the bandwagon. This could be part of the deep state assassination plot. And then also a guy named Bernie Kerik, a very, very extensive criminal record has Bernie Kerik, also doing the assassination conspiracy theory.
And I just put out a tweet about this. If you remember back in 2016, when right before he got elected, I was in Washington, D.C. I was at a couple different social events, and I heard people talking. They said the Democrats want this guy so bad that they wouldn't put assassination behind it. And I'm going to tell you something. They've tried impeachment. They've tried another impeachment. They've tried one investigation after another. This is about one thing. This is about stopping him from running in 2024. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm not into conspiracies.
Right.
I'm not
but
into
here's one.
The anti-government rhetoric. This is the first time in my lifetime that I would say I am deathly afraid for Donald Trump. I would not put assassination behind these people.
Now, the main thing, you know, with a lot of these conspiracy theories, we start getting into, is there motive? Is it possible to carry it out? Why would it, et cetera, et cetera. I genuinely have not heard one reasonable answer to the question. If there were a deep state assassination plot against Donald Trump, why would they need to do a legal FBI search warrant at his home as part of that conspiracy to kill? Why would you, if you ultimately just want to kill the guy, why do you get Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray and a judge to okay going forward with this search warrant, attracting all sorts of attention, if the plan is just to assassinate Trump? It seems completely unnecessary. And, you know, nobody said that these were criminal geniuses, but it just doesn't really make any sense. If you have any answer to that, why would a search warrant legally done have anything to do with an assassination plot by the deep state? Let me know and I'll follow up. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Here is a caller who thinks he knows what Obamagate is. You might remember this whole thing, Obamagate, that started being pushed by the Trumpists during the Trump campaign, during the Trump presidency. This caller believes he knows what it is. Listen.
Hey, David. I was hoping I could straighten you out on what Obamagate is.
Yeah.
Obamagate is just the simple fact that a black man got elected president of the United States. And that was the only thing that was controversial to these hateful, racist people. And that alone is Obamagate. The fact that a black man got elected president of the United States. So if you wonder what Obamagate is, that's what it was.
All right. Well, there's one opinion. Remember, Obamagate was brought up by Donald Trump, and during a press conference, a reporter raised his hand and said, "What is Obamagate?" And Trump said, "You're a journalist. You know what it is." And of course, nobody to this day knows what Obamagate actually is. We have a great bonus show for you today. We are going to talk about what is happening in Afghanistan now under Taliban rule. This is not about Joe Biden did the right or wrong thing. I believe he did the right thing. Trump was going to do the same thing in getting out of Afghanistan. We knew that it would not be great under the Taliban, but at a certain point, it has to end. And we will talk about what life is like under the Taliban in Afghanistan. It's not good, as a preview for today's bonus show story. We're also going to go back to this shooting where actor Alec Baldwin killed someone. It's crazy to say it, and it just kind of, the story went away. But Alec Baldwin shot dead someone on the set of the film Rust, and we've heard very little about it for a period of time. We're going to talk about where the investigation stands today, and also maybe in a sign of sort of conceding a number of important races. The Republican National Committee is dramatically reducing their ad spend in a number of Senate battleground races. Why are they doing it, and what does this mean for the upcoming midterm elections? All of those stories and more on today's bonus show, which you can sign up for at joinpacman.com. I also want to remind you that another great member benefit is occasionally we will do member-only viewer town halls, and we are doing one of those on Wednesday, August 31st at 6 p.m. Eastern. This will be an event that will be streamed for everyone to watch, but only our website members will be invited to participate in this particular town hall. We'll do other general town halls in the future. This particular one is a members-only town hall, and you can sign up at joinpacman.com to get access and to participate. So we'll see you on the bonus show today. Sign up, and otherwise we'll be back here tomorrow.